All right, guys. Hello. Welcome to the first Procreate lesson class, whatever episode. My name is Jay. I am one of the homeschool dads. Today we're going to go over some cool tricks in Procreate. First off, you have all your files in here, all your projects. If you want to, so like, see, I have all these mice projects. You could like make folders in here. So I don't know if you knew this, but you can like drag stuff on top of each other and like make folders in here. So I can like drag this mouse into this folder and drag this mouse into that folder. Okay. Oh, I need to go in there. Go in there. All right. And then I could tap on the name here and name this like mouse. Mouse stack. Okay, and that's a way to like organize your projects. So you can see I have one up here for Julian. I have one for mouse. I have a bunch of projects down here for other stuff. I have a lot of crap on here, sorry. All right, let's go to how to make a new project. That's this plus sign up here. If you're not sure what all of these are different sizes. So you can see they have like 4x6 photo. That's like a photograph that your parents used to get printed out, or you might have some around your house. Paper, this is like normal printer paper, is 8.5 by 11. Screen size, that's like the size of your iPad. So there's a bunch of different sizes in here. You can see I have a bunch of like untitled canvas ones, because sometimes I make stuff for very specific things. So like in this case, if we wanted to make a big poster, let's say a big 16 by 20 poster, I could change this to inches and then change my width to like 16 by 20. And then this DPI is how close together the pixels are and how high a quality of a print you would get. So if you're planning on printing this, you want this to be at least 300. You don't really need to go more than 300. 300 is like what most printers will want. So if you're trying to like make something for a big poster or print something on a shirt or like send it to some printer to make you something, 300 is usually what you want to do for printing. If you're just making something for the internet, for the website, for just to show your friends on Instagram or whatever, you don't really have to worry about the DPI. Most stuff for the web and for computers and stuff is at 72. So DPI is really only comes into play for printing. So 300 for printing, 72 for like web stuff, Instagram, things like that. And then that gets a little more complicated as well. If you want to make stuff for like a video or like a HD TV or something, that's where this like 4K comes in, or this 1920 by 1080. So depending on what you're trying to make this for, that's what all these sizes are for. So I have a bunch of different sizes because I've made a bunch of different stuff. But today we're just going to make one that is the screen size, which is this guy. So the kind of the most powerful thing you can do with digital art is use these layers. So what a layer is, so let me just draw something here. Okay, so I have a red squiggle on this layer, and I can name this layer red. And then I can put a green squiggle going this way. And see, my green squiggle right now is on top of my red squiggle. Oh, shoot. I drew them on the same layer that time, so you can see they're on the same layer. I can't move my green off of my red now. But if I wanted to make a new layer, and I could name this one green, and now I'll do this again. So I'm going to put a green squiggle going this way. So my green right now is on top of my red, but if I hold this, I can move it and move it under my red, or put it back on top of my red. You can also like make it see-through, so it's only part of the way on top of the red, so you can like see through it. That's what this opacity does. And then these things right here make it like behave differently with whatever's underneath it. It's like multiply. Now it's not covering up the red, so if I put it on normal, it's covering up the red. But everything besides normal interacts in a really weird way with the stuff above it or below it. So you can see as I go through these, it changes how that thing behaves with the thing below it. So this is just something really fun to play with. You can make some really, really cool stuff if you play with these layer styles. And playing with these is actually how you make really cool digital art. So don't be afraid to play with these. Definitely go and play with these. Some of the more like the more useful ones. So we're gonna put green. Let's put green in like darken mode, or let's put it in color mode so that we're coloring the red lines wherever I color green. That's gonna show up green wherever I color green on the red. But some of the more interesting ones are screen and multiply. So let's say I have, let's make a big airbrush brush. Okay, so I'm gonna make a big black airbrush here, and then I'm gonna make a white airbrush in the middle of it. So what some of these do is really cool. So like screen only shows the white stuff and hides the black stuff. Multiply only shows the black stuff and hides the white stuff. So it's like if it's on multiply, you get to see through the white. If it's on screen, you get to see through the dark. And then the way Procreate organizes them, all these ones above normal kind of behave similar to multiply. They're just slightly different, but you can see I can kind of like see the white on most of them. And then the ones below normal behave more similar to screen, where the black is hidden. Then once you get below soft light, it kind of like changes the behavior and just does a bunch of random stuff. Like difference, what difference is doing is just inverting the color, so it's like opposite. But some really cool ones are screen and multiply. Okay, so that's kind of how layers work, but let's make a picture and actually use the layers. So I'm gonna delete these. Also, if I want to clear a layer so I can delete it, I can also say clear. If I just click on it, you can say clear. So let's make a picture here really quick. I am going to use one of these ink brushes just because I like these ink brushes. You can do a bunch of cool stuff and make them behave differently in here with all these different options. We'll probably do that later. For now, we're just going to use, if you go to the inking section and go down to one called Syrup, that's the one we're going to use. And then make it a little small. And make a white background. So just click here, make a white background. And then make your ink black. Just click on that. So what we are going to do is we're going to make this smaller brush. Not a huge brush. This is how you make the brush bigger and smaller. We're going to use a small brush. We're going to draw a circle. Now you'll notice that looks kind of like a circle, but it's not a perfect circle. So we're going to hit our 2 fingers on the iPad, and that'll undo it if you just tap it twice, or with 2 fingers, tap it once with 2 fingers. So to make a perfect circle, we're going to draw a circle, but leave our Apple Pencil pushed down. So don't pick it up after you draw the circle, just leave it pushed down. And you can see now I'm kind of like latched onto this circle. So I haven't lifted my pencil up, so let me do it again. I draw the circle and I don't pick it up, I just leave it pushed down. And now I have a perfect circle. And you can see up here on the top, you can click this and you can change it from ellipse to a perfect circle. So if I have an ellipse and I make like an oval, I can kind of drag these points around now individually. Or if I click a circle, it'll make it a perfect circle for me. So I'm gonna tap with 2 fingers a couple times and undo these, and then draw a perfect circle. I'm just holding it down, clicking up here and say circle. Okay, now if I want to color that circle in, I can drag a color onto it. So I just drag that onto here. If I want to color it a different color, I just pick a different color and drag that onto it. So let's leave it brown. And then the cool thing we can do, let's name this. We're gonna name this down here donut. Okay, we're gonna make a donut. But what does a donut need? A donut needs a hole. So let's make another layer. We're just gonna make this black. And we're gonna call this hole. Okay. And let's draw another circle. Hold it down. Make a circle. And then we're gonna fill in our hole with black. So now we have a brown part and a black part. And what's cool about this is if we click on the black part, now we can move it around. We can put the hole, or we can resize the hole if we want like a thicker donut. So we can move the hole wherever we want. So I'm gonna say that's the middle of my donut. And now what we can do, if I click on this and say select, what that does is it selects everything on this layer. So if I make another layer now, I can color, but I'm trapped inside where that black is. So this is how you turn layers on and off. Oh, my laptop's about to die. We've got to hurry this up. So you can turn layers on and off here. And I have a selection now. So you can see my, see these gray lines going across my screen? That's what's telling me what I have selected. So right now I'm trapped inside of this part without the green lines. So I can just scribble all over my page and I'm trapped inside of there. So if I click up here and click off of this guy up here, this is the selection tool. So that is the same as saying select, and then it just selects whatever's on your layer. So what we want to do, we want to say select. We want to select this black hole, and then on our donut layer, we're going to say clear. And so now if we turn off our black, now we have a donut body with a hole in it. So now we have a donut, okay? So now let's say we want to add frosting on our donut. So now we're going to say select again and make a new layer, and we're going to call this frosting. All right. And I'm going to try to plug in my my iPad here so it doesn't die on me. Okay, so now we have a layer of frosting. Let's pick like a, I'm gonna pick pink frosting. I like a Homer Simpson donut. So I'm gonna pick pink frosting, and I'm gonna make my paintbrush kind of big over here. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna paint on here. I'm just gonna paint a design on here. And it doesn't have to be anything. So I just painted kind of a flower, but you could just do one of these. Like that looks kind of cool. Or you could like do one of these and make it look like, you can really do whatever kind of frosting you want. I kind of like this idea though. This is kind of a cool frosting. Okay, so now we have our frosting layer and our donut layer. Now the other thing we can do is we can then make like a copy of this frosting. So you can drag this over and say duplicate. And I'm gonna name this bottom one Frosting Shadow. And I'm going to turn off the top one, and on the bottom one, we're just gonna make this black. Okay, so now we have frosting shadow, and our donut. And on the frosting shadow one, I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna unselect my selection here. And then I'm gonna go to this magic wand and say Gaussian blur. You can see right here it's at 0% if you look at the top up here. And I'm gonna just drag my pencil to the right. And you can see I'm kind of making a shadow below my pink layer there. So what we have done, we've just made that blurry. So these right here are like adjustments you can do. And a blur is a really easy way to like make shadows and stuff like that. So now the other thing we're gonna do is make this a little less dark. So I'm gonna put it at like 60. And it might not look like it's doing that much, but see, it kind of makes a big deal. Like it kind of makes it look cool. Now the other thing we can do is on our frosting layer, we can select that, and then above that one, we can put some sprinkles. So now we're gonna put sprinkles on this layer up here. Sprinkles. Okay. And then we're going to go pick one of these. We'll just stay on our syrup brush. And then what we're gonna do is just come draw sprinkles on here, okay? So we're just gonna draw some random sprinkles on here. Kind of make them facing different ways. Whoops. It's okay if they're not all the same size, that's fine. Okay, now we're gonna go pick a different color. So like purple. And let's make some purple sprinkles. If you want to draw sprinkles off of the frosting, you can just deselect it by clicking this. You don't have to stay on the frosting. So like I'll draw one that's off the frosting here. And then I think I'm gonna do one more color. I'm just gonna do some white sprinkles. Okay, that's probably good enough for mine. And now what we're gonna do with the sprinkles, we're actually gonna do the same thing we did with the frosting. So we're gonna make a duplicate of that and turn the top one off and rename this Sprinkles Shadow. And then we're going to come to here and blur it a little bit. So just drag your, oh, sorry. We also want to color this black. So one of the things you can do to color it black is if you just say select and then change this to black, you can say fill. Now we have black, and let's do our Gaussian blur now. Okay, so we're gonna make that our shadow, and then we're gonna turn our sprinkles back on. And if the shadow looks weird, we can actually move it because it's on its own layer. So we're gonna move the shadow with the arrow tool here and move the sprinkle shadow down a little bit. And then we can also turn it down a little bit and move it so it's not quite as far away. Okay, so we're kind of getting some depth here. Maybe on the frosting, we're gonna move that a little bit as well. And actually, we should probably make a shadow for the donut as well. So let's do the same thing. Donut. Rename this to Donut Shadow. And you can turn all this other stuff off so you can see your donut shadow. We're going to color it black. And then Gaussian blur. And then we'll turn our donut back on and we'll move our shadow down a little bit. And that's pretty dark, so let's turn it down. And then we turn all these on and look, now we're starting to have a donut. Okay, so one of the other things we can do now is we can make highlights on this, or we can make other shadows on it. So one of the things we can do, let's select our donut here. Select this. And now we're going to make another layer here. And we're going to go pick, actually, let's do it with our main brush we're on. We're not even going to change brushes in this lesson. We're just going to do everything with the same brush. So one thing, we're going to look at some lighting really quick. So how I've been moving all my shadows is I've been moving all my shadows that way. So I do the blur, and then I move the shadow down that way. So the light that we're working with here, so let's name this light. Light. Okay, so the first light we're working with is going to be let's say it's just a light bulb up here. Okay. So the light bulb's this way, and it's making the shadows on this side of the donut because the light's coming this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our donut, select, and we're not going to draw on our light layer. You guys don't even have to make the light layer. I'm just doing that for our lesson here. So this, we're going to name this our shadow 1. Shadows 1. So we have our donut selected, which should cover everything in this drawing so far. And we're just going to kind of redraw on the side of the donut where the light wouldn't be hitting. So like, since this donut is round, we know like over here, the light's not going to be hitting this side of the donut, right? So let's just draw a shadow there, and then I'm going to draw and color that in. And then also, the light's not going to hit this part of the donut. So we're going to draw a shadow there and color it in. And now that might look a little crappy. That's okay. So there's a couple things you can do here. We can turn this down, and even that makes like a pretty big difference, like that. But then the other thing we can do is keep our donut selected. So select that again. And then on our shadow layer, you guessed it, Gaussian blur again. We're just gonna drag it to the right again. And look, now we're starting to have a donut. So now we'll go off our selection. Okay, so now we're starting to have a pretty cool donut here, aren't we? So now we're gonna make another layer, and we're gonna call this one highlight. Highlight. And we'll name this highlights 1 as well. Okay, so we're gonna do actually the exact opposite of what we just did. We're gonna select our donut. And then on this layer, we're going to take white, because that's what color our light is. And we're just going to draw where the light would be hitting the donut. Okay, so we're just gonna draw on this side. And then we'll just fill that in. So now we have white over here. And then there would also be some white on this side. You can see I'm not doing it perfect because what we're going to do is turn it down and blur it. And so the thing with highlights is like the frosting is probably going to be a little brighter than the brown part. So like the brown part is not as shiny as the frosting. So what you could also do is like you could drag this highlight down below the frosting. And so you could name this like the baked part highlights, like baked highlights. And then you can actually turn this down more because like a baked good is not going to be as shiny as the frosting. So we'll put the baked good below the frosting and we'll have that highlight like that. And then we can actually duplicate this and put that above the frosting again. But this time we will select everything on our frosting layer. And then we're going to say invert. So that selects everything outside of the frosting. And then on our baked highlights, we're going to say clear. So now what we have, now I have a different highlight for my frosting than my baked good. I hope that makes sense. So now we're going to make my frosting a little more shiny than my baked good. So if you're not following what we just did, let me turn all these off. So this is our frosting highlight, and let's rename it to that. Frosting highlights 1. Rename. Okay, so our frosting highlights 1. And then over here we have our baked highlight. And see, that's for the donut part. And then this is for only the frosting part. So let's turn all this stuff back on. And then the other thing we can do is you could also, because the frosting is going to be like way shinier sometimes, so we can just come in here and just make like highlights where you know it would kind of be shiny on the frosting. And then we'll actually do the same thing. So here we have, this is going to be frosting highlights 2. And then we're going to do the same thing. We will just blur this. And we can turn it down or leave it. Okay, I hope you see what we're doing. We actually don't need to change brushes at all to do a lot of stuff. We're just using the tools available. Now, the other thing we could do is we could like add another light. So sometimes what I like to do to make it like a little more dynamic is not have a white light, but maybe like on this side. So we're gonna name, actually on this same color. Let's say we have a green light over here. So maybe you have some kind of green light over here. So we could also do a similar thing where we say like green highlight. Oh, I spelled that completely wrong. Highlight. Okay, so we're gonna name a green highlight over here. And we can actually just do the same thing we did previously. We're gonna select our frosting layer. Actually, let's select everything. We'll select the whole donut layer. And we'll just add. And this is not going to be as strong as the other one, but we're still going to do the same type of thing. And we're not going to put a shadow on this one either. We're just going to do the green highlight part. So now we'll do Gaussian blur again. And then we will turn this down. Okay, so now this, you can see it looks kind of weird. This is where we could start playing with these different types of highlights. Since we're going for a green light, we want to go use the stuff below normal. So the stuff in the lighten and the screen area. You can see it's already kind of like making a difference just changing some of these. So I kind of like color dodge is making it pop a little bit. Or you could do neutral, whatever. This is you kind of just like do to your preference. I might use add and then just turn it down a little. I kind of like this green all the way though. Kind of like that. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, look at that. Subtract is really good. Okay, so see, subtract is really good. I got that really nice pink, but that's not green, but that's okay. I kind of like that better. Now let's say I wanted it to be green though. Like that blends really well, but let's say I want that to be green. So I'm gonna leave that on subtract because I like the way that's blending. And then the other thing you can do is you can come in here and say hue saturation. And now I can play with this and change what color that thing is. So I can change what colored light I'm getting. And I can make it like brighter or darker or different color. I really like that first purple I had though, so I'm gonna undo all this with double taps. And I think I'm gonna leave, I'm getting pretty happy with this donut here. Now one thing we haven't done is put little shadows on all the sprinkles. I'm gonna select this so I'm not coloring off of them. Then I'll just go in here and add shadows to each one of my sprinkles. And we just want to kind of remember where the light's coming from. And try to make them all kind of behave, like have the same thickness. Oh, like that one's way too thick. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing, except we're going to leave our sprinkles selected because we don't want our blur going outside of the sprinkles. So we're still going to leave our sprinkles selected, and then we're going to blur these a little bit. And turn it down maybe a tiny bit. If we don't make it quite as dark, they don't pop as much. going to do the same thing for the highlights. So we'll make a, so this will be sprinkle shadow. And then we'll do sprinkle highlights as well. So we'll do another one on top. And we'll go to white. And we'll just do more highlights on our sprinkles. Don't need to do the white ones because the white ones are not going to show anything. Actually, that one. Okay, and then we will blur this one as well. So select the sprinkles again. Make sure you're on our highlight layer and blur. And then we might turn that up or down. All right, so there we go, guys. Let's delete our lights here. Now we have a donut. And look at all the layers we have. But hopefully that teaches you a few tricks. The other thing you can do, so now we're gonna copy all of these, or drag them all, and we're gonna say group. So now we're gonna say donut. Okay, so we have a group of them. We could duplicate this group now. And we could turn this group off. This is how I normally work, is I leave my working stuff below, but now I have a donut that's kind of flat, and I can resize it or move it around. So I'm gonna resize this, then I'm gonna duplicate it again and move that over there. And then you know what else I could do is now on here, I could say hue saturation and change the color of my donut. Or if you wanted to just change the color of the frosting or, make different frosting, now you have you have everything kind of built that you could make more frosting or make a new donut or whatever. Or you could just make a bunch of donuts that look all exactly the same. Or you can make some big donuts and some small donuts. So, see how I'm getting pixelated now? Because I went from small to big. So that's one of the things I was talking about at the beginning with the resolution. So we want to make, if we're going to go bigger, we want to go from our bigger one. So I can make this one bigger and see it doesn't get quite as distorted. So you kind of have to know what you're going to be doing with this ahead of time. So going smaller is way easier than going bigger. But the bigger we go, the choppier it gets. But yeah, that is our first little lesson, guys. So, another thing you can do if you don't want to change every single color, you can pick color balance and just change parts of the color. So if I just wanted to change the shadows, or if I just wanted to change the highlights. More to come on that though. There's all kinds of other stuff you can do. But the point is, don't be afraid to play with all these settings. And you also don't, I didn't use a single other brush during this whole thing. So we made this whole thing with just one brush. Just with our normal syrup brush and then some Gaussian blurs. All right, that's our first class. Good luck, crew.